Good morning, my friends. Welcome to the little black couch today. I have some wonderful news and some little bits of entrepreneurial, I don't know if it's wisdom necessarily, but some points that I think could be helpful on this very special day. Let's go. Welcome back. I have been told here, I have been alerted that the internet quality is poor today from the office, so I apologize. It says that the stream quality has been automatically lowered. So if that means that you cannot see me and I'm blurry, then count your blessings, right? So cool. All right, well, I wanted to jump right in, and again, it's sort of a live, an early live today. I typically go in the afternoon, but thoughts and things have come flying into my head, and just there's so much, and the to-do list is getting so long for the day that I wanted to make sure I jump on and got this going. It's kind of a cool day, and I want to bring in our friend Buddy, the star of the show and the namesake of the show, real quick on the live couch cam. And oh dear, we've lost him. There he is. There he is. He's brought him back. Yeah, thanks, Buddy. Thanks for being here today. That's very nice. The hearts and the eyes of the emoji and the heart in the middle. I love you too, bud. I appreciate that very much. But really, this is Buddy reminding me, and I appreciate it very much. He's a dear friend and confident and keeps me on my toes. But today is my 21st wedding anniversary. My dear sweet wife is home in bed sick. The very same illness that happened to cause me a great amount of uncomfortableness over last weekend, she now has decided to enjoy herself. So bless her heart, she woke up this morning, she went to bed last night not feeling well. And so, happy anniversary, honey. I know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that it's... So anyway, I'm here at work. Our kids have encouraged us to go out and do something fun tonight, but we may have to push that off for a week because my sweetheart is not doing well. But it is under the guise of the anniversary that some of the thoughts of today's little discussion from the little black couch kind of percolated and came up. And so I wanted to talk about those really quickly. You'll see in the title of this, I talk a little bit about values. And as an entrepreneur, obviously you have to have values. There are going to be times as we grow our business and we come and it gets bigger, that we're going to have to take on different customers and clients. We're going to probably have to work with different vendors, and we may have to hire different employees. And so this idea of having some kind of a moral compass, of having values in place, becomes very important. And what I have learned over the course of my life have been somewhat kind of interesting. And then I will reflect, I'm going to go all the way back to when I was 12 years old, and I was in a meeting. It was a church meeting, and there was one of the leaders of our church was up speaking to us. And again, this was sort of the first time that I had been in one of these types of meetings. I was there with my dad. I'm the oldest of 7 kids. So this was kind of a special situation for me. Being there for the first time with Pops, and kind of being at, there you go, Nick, trying to get the framing right. Is that Gotta have your eye line that top third, folks. Okay. So anyway, I was with Dad, and we were listening to, essentially being instructed and trained and stuff at this meeting. And again, I'm 12. I'm not very old. But this elderly gentleman up at the front, who I knew very well, at 12 years old, had heard him speak many a times over the previous years and had read some of the things that he had taught over the years. I was there listening. And as he spoke to us, and again, we were actually watching him on a big video screen, but as he spoke to us, he said something super interesting. And, excuse me, I apologize. Something caught in my throat there. Need a little water. Yes, it did. Okay, apologize. But anyway, he was speaking to us, and he took a time to, he turned his thoughts and his talk to the young men in the audience. Does that seem to come on every time at that, right? It seems really, really weird. But anytime, so he had this, he readdressed and the youth, those of us that were sitting in the audience for the first time and were attending this meeting for the first time. And he went through the importance of values, and he went through the importance of making sure we knew where we stood. And at that time, he went through and said, hey, I can promise you this, that if you take a stand today on where your values will be, and you make a promise with me in your mind that you will never do these sorts of things, then when they come up further in your life, the decision's already been made. And that particular one at that time was about drinking alcohol. So he just said, hey, if you promise with me, well, it was actually to drink alcohol and to never smoke. He goes, if you promise with me right now that you will never touch alcohol and you will never smoke, you never will. And he went on to explain sort of the challenges that can come with smoking and drinking and the addictive side of that. And so he asked us to commit right there. And as a 12-year-old who respected this man, I committed. I said, I will never drink any alcohol and I will never smoke. In my little 12-year-old mind, I made that commitment. And then didn't think much about it. Well, obviously, at 12, you're really not going to be faced with much of that, especially back, right, what is that, 40 years ago, right? It just didn't come up that much. And so I went through these young years and went on to college. And I really didn't have much. There was some of it in high school, but not a whole lot. I mean, I'm in Utah, for heaven's sakes, right? That's where I went to high school. So there wasn't a whole lot of that going on. But I went and served as a missionary in Japan, came back, and then went to college. And I was down at UNLV, University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Las Vegas is Sin City, right? And there were a lot of opportunities at UNLV to partake of alcohol and partying and all that kind of stuff. But it was amazing to me that it never interested me. And I didn't really, obviously I had some religious beliefs, and it just never was much of anything to me. And I remembered back to this commitment that the first couple times that I had been asked to come join a party or whatever, I remembered back to this little commitment that I made when I was 12 years old. And that's all it took. It was never very interesting. It was never much of a draw. It wasn't much of a temptation. And I never did it. I then went on to graduate school, to a school called Thunderbird. I mean, we had a bar on campus, for heaven's sakes. It's now part of ASU, which is what, Party Central of the Western United States anyway. So, and again, had opportunities there and wasn't interested. And so over the course of my career, went into obviously the corporate world and was buying bottles of wine for other folks and was taught how to pick good bottles of wine for different meals and all that, but never had a drop of alcohol myself and was never interested in it. And smoking, I mean, just stinks. So I've never had a problem with that. But this idea of making a commitment and having a value when you're early on now makes a lot of sense to me. What I've learned about myself, which is very interesting, is I have a very addictive personality. So had I tried drinking or had I tried smoking, chances were very little on the smoking part. But drinking, when I was young, that they sure made Zima sound fun. When I was young, but of that age. They make fun of it now, but back then, they made it seem pretty exciting, and the beer commercials were always very exciting. But it was just never something that I was interested in because of the commitment, the value that I had, and the commitment that I'd made so early on in life. And so that was something that became very important to me as I learned what an addictive personality I have. And I mean, if we went back to the couch cam real quick. No, you can't really see it there. How if I do this? Life hack. So if you see here, I don't know if you can see this, but I've got a whole big bunch of golf clubs back there in the corner. I've got a bit of a golf fetish, addiction, let's call it, okay? So I learned pretty quickly that I have an addictive personality. And it doesn't really, whether it was, I started to run marathons and then ran like 7 of them, and was running till I had shin splints and my knees were killing me, and I just have this very weird personality that way. It's wonderful when you get into certain things like entrepreneurship. I love to learn and I love to try new things. Well, that works great as an entrepreneur, and I have a very addictive personality, so I plow through books like crazy. I love to read. That's an addiction. It's a helpful one. So if you can turn it into the right areas, then that's a wonderful personality trait. But if it happens to go into the wrong ones, then I would be in some big trouble, right? So, and I've had to learn that. So I'm so thankful that I had these commitments when I was young to stay away from some things that could have been very damaging to me, because I have a very addictive personality. Okay, but on this anniversary, this 21st anniversary, it's also cool to see that I am very addicted to my wife. I just cannot get enough of this woman. She is extraordinary to me. I absolutely love her more every day, and she is my greatest addiction. I just absolutely can't get enough of her. So it worked great in that regard. But it also brought along, when I married Carol, we had a good discussion about how we wanted to treat our marriage and how we wanted to respect one another. And so she kind of jokingly came up with these rules. But some of her rules for me in our marriage are no girls, which makes some sense, right? No girls, no guns, no dancing, and no flying, like a private plane. As some of you know who know me, I did take private flying lessons for a while, but my instructor died tragically in a plane crash when I was almost done, and so that kind of put to the end of flying privately, and that's where the no flying rule came in. Typically it was just the 3: no girls, no guns, and no dancing. The no dancing really comes from some unfortunate dance moves that I showed Carol early on in our courtship that she preferred to never see again. Whatever. Okay. So no dancing, that was one of hers. No guns. She's terrified of guns. And this has been, I grew up with guns. I grew up in a family of guns. My grandfather was an award-winning marksman, so we used to go shooting all the time. So this one's been somewhat difficult, but instead, I have to keep like a 3-iron next to the bed in case somebody breaks in, and I'm quite handy with a 3-iron, so that will just have to do. We watch a lot of Supergirl as well, so I've learned some techniques and tactics there to hopefully protect the family if anybody happens to break in. But ultimately then, this rule of no girls. So what did that cause me to do? Well, in my business life, I just kind of decided that I would never ever be alone with another woman, period. If it wasn't my sister, if it wasn't one of my sisters, one of my mothers, my mother, I only have one mother. So if it wasn't my mother, if it wasn't my sisters, aunts, cousins, if it wasn't family, then I would never be alone with a woman. That was just one of the rules that I respected and thought was a really good idea, being a married man. Well, that turned out to be somewhat challenging sometimes in my business life. There would be, distributors or folks that would want to go out to dinner or whatever. And if they happened to be a woman, I would ask that they brought their husband along or somebody else along, just to make sure that I was never alone with them. And they always thought I was being quite kind and gracious, but I was just playing by my rules, playing by my values, and I stuck to them. As I became an entrepreneur, we got a number of large contracts with some Fortune 100 companies. And when we first started this, all of my contacts in these companies were men. So I could travel there, we could go out to dinner, I could do what you typically have to do to keep a client, keep a friendship with a client and make it very healthy and make it very good. But at one time, this one individual that I was very good friends with, it came time for him to retire. And he was replaced by a woman. And she was really talented, a super great person, really fun to work with. But when I went down to visit the company, I said, hey, can we make sure that somebody's coming along with this? And she had worked in the department. She's like, well, what do you mean? What's the big deal? I used to go to lunch all the time with this guy that I replaced. What's the big deal? And I said, look, I just have this thing where I can't go to lunch. I can't be alone with a woman. And she was really offended by this. And her supervisor was a woman, and the guy who I worked with, it's the same supervisor there. She was a woman. Well, she went and told this lady, and this woman got a little upset too. Well, within a couple weeks, our contract was canceled, and it was a big contract. It cost us about $50,000 to $75,000 a month net profit, and so that was really hard to take on, and to realize that I had taken a stand and said, hey, I can't do this. I was more than happy if the boss came or anybody else came, but I just couldn't be alone with this person. I found out later that she thought that I was, kind of saying that I felt like she had some sort of feelings for me and stuff, and I wasn't saying that at all. It was just that was my core value, and I thought I made that pretty clear. So we lost a great big bunch of business. So there is that. Do I regret that? Not at all. I mean, that's my core value. That decision had already been made. And there's no way to know when you go through the course of your career as an entrepreneur or otherwise where your values have absolutely protected you and where they have cost you. In this particular case, some would say that it cost me. And it costed me probably in some funds. But I'll tell you what it didn't do. It didn't cost me an ounce of anything with my wife, with my family, with me, because that was a value of mine. I stayed true to that, and I feel really good about it. Money isn't the most important thing. Values are far more important than money, and I believe that if you stick with those values, the money comes from the right places at the right time. That may be tough for a lot of people to hear. Losing $75,000 a month can be difficult, but losing your values is earth-shattering. So, for today's little life, here we go. We'll do this life hack, folks. Everybody, what are your values? Figure out what those are. Write them down. Ask yourself moral questions and then answer them. Where do you stand? Who are you? And will you stay there? I can promise you that if you do that, then when these moral questions come up, and they will, in your business, you will have already made that decision. It will save you a great amount of time. It will save you a great amount of stress. It will be an easy decision that could become a difficult one if it's made now, when the stress isn't on that decision. When you have time and you're clear-headed and you think through it. What's the best possible thing for your family? Again, going back to yesterday's discussion, take the long view. What's going to get you where you need to be? And what sort of moral stance do you need to make in order for you to ensure getting to where you want to go? Ask those questions, answer them, draw a line in the sand, and never go over that line. And I can promise you that everything in your business life will revolve around that, and you will find clients, you will find vendors, you will find employees that match up to that. You start living and breathing your values, and people sense that in you, and they will react to you in kind, and you will develop an organization that is built around your values, which is a very super comfortable way to go to work every day. Right? When you know everybody has the same set of values and everybody looks at problems the same way and everybody reacts to moral challenges the exact same way. That's a wonderful way to run a business, and it's a wonderful way to live as an entrepreneur. So, thank you for joining me today. I hope that you take time to discuss and think about your values and make a stance for yourself. It will make your life a lot easier in the future. It's definitely made mine a lot easier in the future. My marriage is in awesome shape. I've never loved her more, and she's the best. So, happy anniversary to me. I appreciate all the well wishes. We'll talk to you again soon. Until next time, thanks for joining me on The Little Black Couch. It has been a journey in entrepreneurship. Please remember that entrepreneurs do change the world. We do. We make a huge difference. We solve problems, and we make life better for so many worldwide. And the changes that we make, the solutions that we solve, have far-reaching effects that we can't even fathom. But they're going on, and they're making a huge difference. And so pat yourself on the back. It's good to be an entrepreneur. Until next time, Aaron Stewart. See ya. Thanks.